Hey everyone, it's Millie.
It's Gabby.
And welcome back to another week of Change by Degrees. And this week we have episode 78, The Song of Achilles, a book talk discussion.
Love it.
Do you love it?
I do.
I know, I think
I've been waiting for this episode.
That's a new type of intro, so sorry for the odd pause there, but it's okay. I'll get better.
We're going to try putting the episode titles in the...
Yeah.
I don't know if it... Whatever.
So anyway, so you have that, and now you know what we're talking about. And we read a book.
If you can't read the title.
That too, but it's okay.
Whatever.
Your idea was fabulous, Gabby.
Thank you.
And we're going to have a discussion on this book that we read, and we're so grateful that the author included questions at the back.
Yes.
Because they're better than what we would have made, and we don't have to work extra.
At least in our
I had
copy.
to read a book, guys.
It was difficult.
It was the first fiction. It was difficult for me. Gabby had fun reading it, but it was just, yeah. I'm glad. It's been the first fiction book I read in a long time.
That's so sad.
Okay.
Fiction is so necessary. Don't get me started on the importance of literacy.
I agree. And I'm going to say right off the bat, I'm not going to drag this book. It's a good book. I like series more.
A series.
It's
well,
like
but it's nice to have just like a
and I understand. It's kind of like when you have one good
thing.
movie. I get that, but I think the type of storytelling I connect with the most is when like you get to know the characters over such a long period of time, because this book spans like their whole lives
until they die. Spoiler alert, by the way. If you haven't read this book, Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller.
That was already, you said the spoiler before you said spoiler alert.
Okay, but if you're clicking on this episode, and we're discussing it, there's going to be spoilers. So kind of use some common sense, but there will be spoilers, spoiler alert, throughout this entire episode. So go read the Song of Achilles first.
Oh my god.
Or if you don't care about spoilers and you'll still read it, that's fine. You can listen to this and then go read it.
But yeah, it spends their whole lives in over 300 and something pages. And I'm like, wow. There's a few moments where I'm like, wow, you're glazing through. You're like flying through.
Yeah, but nothing really happened. Like when they talk, someone who's read the freaking Iliad and didn't enjoy it.
I have never read.
I don't want to say don't read it. Like it's an epic poem and it's a classic for a reason, but like the Trojan War, nothing happens for like a good 10 years. Like they don't do anything, and half the time the men forget why they're even there, which is kind of touched on in this book a little bit. Yes. But like they go to get Helen
and they can't get through,
so they just camp out and they pretty much like make a little town outside of
which is
Troy.
So cringy.
And then as the years pass, the men are just like, wait, why are we here again? Like it's really, so I think that's why she's breezing through certain parts of the Trojan War, because nothing's happening.
That part I appreciate because I'm like, woof.
It's like they're in hand-to-hand combat every single day. They like go fight every once in a while, and then they're like, that was fun.
Do some raids.
They do some raids, some raping and pillaging. Right. That's about it.
And they're done. Really good.
Until the end when Patroclus goes to fight and dies.
That whole scene, anyway, I don't want to, maybe we'll touch on that as we answer some of the questions.
Much.
And we picked, Panera's, you picked 2 questions each.
You picked 2. So we both picked questions.
And if we don't get through each of our selections, that's fine because we talk a lot. And we'll probably go on tangents, and that's okay. So I believe the first question, I took a picture of it, but you can read it if you'd like.
So, and these are the discussion questions in the back. I don't know if they're in every edition, but they're in the one we have. Is number 6. To what extent does Achilles' ultimate destiny shape his choices? Is there such a thing as free will in this world? In this world, meaning their world, not
the
our
book's
world.
We know, hopefully,
or Greek mythology world, I guess. Do you want to start? Do you want me to start?
Well, I picked the question. I'm actually curious what you...
Oh, okay. Okay, so for me...
Oh, because you had picked this question too.
Yes, I did. I don't think... So, at least in the, like, overarching themes of Greek mythology, free will isn't really a thing. Because even when characters and mythological figures try to, like, they'll go consult the oracle, and the oracle will say, like, this is going to happen. And so they're going to be like, oh, I'm going to do everything to avoid that thing. And in them trying to avoid what the oracle said is going to happen, they end up causing it to happen. Yeah. Like the prophecy coming true and stuff like that. So I don't think, in the way that like the Greek gods, who are awful, horrible beings, operate and like control things in Greek mythology world, I don't think there's free will. Like I don't think that's something that was ever like a possibility in their world, or like I don't know, that would ever be like allowed in the world, because the gods are either very hands-on, or at some points they're like so hands-off, but there's still one god in the corner trying to like control certain things. So I don't think so. And like I think you see that in this book as well, because there's a lot of prophecy happening with like Achilles' destiny, and like he'll stay alive as long as Hector is alive, and blah blah blah. So, and they try to avoid, or Patroclus at least tries to avoid Achilles killing Hector and this whole thing. But like ultimately, which is kind of funny, ultimately Patroclus is the one that obviously gets killed first, but he's also the one that like which is kind of the cause of Achilles' death in a way.
Really,
so like,
which I think I could see the foreshadowing of that. But I would agree. I think in this world of Greek mythology, which I'd never again read a book, I had seen the movie like Troy, which is very different.
Yeah, that's not a very good adaptation of like Greek mythology,
but yeah, I think in them trying to avoid what they were told from, well, not told from very little, but that they knew, they still end up in the same place. And I thought it was very, well, not poetic, but Patroclus being like, I'm gonna do this and try to avoid. And the whole time his internal dialogue is like the acceptance of like he's gonna die, but still trying to avoid it.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it's like one of those things you don't like. He doesn't want to die, but he knows it's like that's what's going to happen, because if Achilles, he's going to do everything to protect Achilles. So I feel like he's just kind of I mean, he's the one who followed him to war in the first place. Like he didn't have to, because he's not a good fighter, and he talks about that through the whole book about how he's not built for it, and he doesn't really like it, but he's just following Achilles to war because it's Achilles and he's in love with them and blah blah blah. But like, so yeah, no, I don't think, and I feel like Achilles, even though I don't think he took it as seriously as like Patroclus did. Like I feel like Achilles through the whole book has this, obviously this otherworldliness, because he is, well, I mean, he's the son of like a sea nymph and then a mortal, so he's not a god, but he is kind of pseudo above everybody else in a way, because a sea nymph is almost like a lower class of god. I don't know.
LOL, drag him.
Well, because it makes him more than a mortal, but he's not a god. And so I feel like a lot of times there's like this air of invincibility about him through other Greek myths, not this book, but other Greek myths. And
this book doesn't
do that. Wow. I feel like Madeline Miller really took the Iliad and how he's portrayed there, instead of using, because there was I took one Greek mythology class in college, so I'm really pulling from those 4 months. But but like there were myths about Achilles all the way up till the Middle Ages, like that people were writing about him. But those were a lot more. They portrayed him more as a god than the Iliad ever did, or the Odyssey, because his name is mentioned in the Odyssey a few times. But anyway, I don't even know why I started saying that. But going back to the original question, I just feel like Achilles he sees himself also as very invincible. So even though he doesn't really take these prophecies and his destinies like as seriously as Patroclus, he acknowledges them, but he's not too super concerned about them. Yeah, at least on the surface.
Yeah, and I think him dealing with his mother, which that character is like woo! And the whole book, I was like, I'm so glad that she kept. Like, she was the main character throughout the whole book, because I think
she kept popping up.
Yes. But I think the way he has discussions with his mother, discussions with other people, you can tell the way that he thinks, and how I think even towards the end of the book, especially in battles, and he sees his own abilities, that he gets even more, not cocky, but like...
He just knows what he's doing. He's just like, and he knows that, and I think there was...
and being okay with the fact that like, I'd rather die with fame than... just back away and like not do what I was born to do, which is be a warrior.
And I feel like that, like, he didn't really think about it like that until Patroclus was dead, because early on in the book, and I should have put the page number down, but I don't know. But early on in the book, when they were still technically like children, and I think Achilles and Patroclus had just started to become friends when they were at like his dad's castle, whatever, home, and Patroclus got sent there or whatever, and so they were just starting to become friends. And there was there's a part where Achilles said like, instead of Patroclus going with the other boys to go do whatever their daily things, Achilles went and got him and said, like, come with me. I'm going to show you how he didn't say this explicitly, but what he was doing is, I'm going to show you how I fight. And so Patroclus sits there and watches Achilles, like, take a spear and, like, do all his, like, battle movements and stuff. And Patroclus was like, holy crap, dude, like, you kind of, this one, I'm paraphrasing.
Okay, this is really good. In Gabby's head.
This is how I am.
300 pages ago, this is what she remembers.
This is what I remember. But, like, and so he watches Achilles and he's like, you are like, and like, you're a great fighter. Who have you fought? Who taught you? And Achilles responds with, like, well, my dad a little bit, but not really. LOL. And Patroclus, his inner monologue is like, a little bit. Like, this is all natural. Like, this is just Achilles. This is, and so I think Patroclus says, like, well, fight me. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, dude. And so they get into it, not an argument, but they start going back and forth about it. And Achilles eventually, like, pins Patroclus down, and Patroclus is like, okay, I'm not going to fight you. So I think, like, I don't know. I think Achilles, it's hard. I don't think he's cocky. I think it's just one of those things as the book goes on and they get into, like, Troy and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just, like, he just knows his abilities. Mm-hmm. And I think he doesn't really care for his abilities as much. Like, he'll fight in battle, but he's not gonna, like, be rash about it until Patroclus is dead, and then he kind of goes off the edge. But LOL. Just a little bit. But he does. Yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting too, because then there was another part. I'm rambling, I'm sorry. That's okay, go ahead. But there was another part too where Patroclus begs him, like, don't kill Hector, because that was the guy that, like, they were like, if Hector dies, Achilles will die. Which is the most interesting thing to me, but finish your point. Yeah. And so, and Patroclus is like, please don't kill Hector. And Achilles is like, why would I kill Hector? He hasn't done anything to me. Yes, I was about to say that. Love. Which also shows Achilles isn't bloodthirsty. Right. He's just like, or killing anybody. Because when they start doing raids and stuff like that, and I think you see a little, like, not a different side of Achilles, where he's like, I wouldn't kill an unarmed person. Right. And when they think about, why am I going to war? And he's like, well, Helen, and it's just for jealousy. Like, I really don't care about all these people. This is really a worthy war. Yeah. But eventually he gets into it because he's like, you know what? This is what I'm meant to, do, and kill Hector. But it's just, he's always, I think, at odds with that prophecy. But at the end of the day, it still ends up happening. And I think in the way that people knew. Although, again, when you have these conversations with, or hear the conversations with the gods above that are like, they're messy. They're so messy. Which is just, and they start taking, well, I don't, it's really not super touched on in this, but like in the Iliad, there's fights between the gods and who's taking whose side and who's protecting Patroclus and who's protecting Achilles and who's protecting Hector. And so the gods, because they just like messing with mortals, and that's what they do. That's for fun. Because they're just horrible beings. And I don't remember what god was it that when Patroclus was trying to kill someone, trying to do something, that there was Apollo? No, it wasn't Apollo. There was I don't remember if it was god or goddess. I don't know if it was Athena. Trying to protect him, basically. I don't remember who. But anyway, it kind of touches on that. It never says why, because we don't really get to see, because it's from Patroclus' perspective. We don't get to see the side of the gods. But there is the implication that, like, okay, gods are intervening and protecting certain mortals for certain reasons. And that isn't really gotten into. And anyway, like, the gods are just as human as the humans are. Dude, the gods suck, dude. And that's just how it is. But I think in this world, I would say there's no free will. No, because the gods are way too involved. But at least the power that Madeline has given in this portrayal, I think it's that, there's still relationships and stories that happen within the period of time before it were to happen. But it still happens. I don't think there's anything they could have done. It's almost like you can take, it's like there's one end, like, point. You can take 10 different roads, and you're still going to end up there. The 10 different roads have different scenarios and different things happen, but you're still going to end up at the same point. It's almost like it reminds me of, like, choose your own adventure books. Yeah. Where, like, it's like, flip to page 2 if you want to do this, and then on page 2 you read it, and it's like, flip to page 50. But most choose your own adventure books, they all end up at, like, not the same point, but very similar outcomes. Yeah. And no matter how much, and when I was younger and I would have choose your own adventure books, I would try to get a different outcome. And sometimes it would happen, but rarely would I get a completely different outcome than I was, like, expecting. And I think it's just showing that, like, you can only do so much in Greek mythology world before the gods are just like, but then you get but we want you at this point. Like, you're gonna end up here. Yeah, the gods are gonna screw you over in the end. Yeah, you can choose how to go to Bod, but you got no free will. Not really. And I think also, like, Patroclus, even though they're both obviously that's their world, I feel like Patroclus doesn't accept that as much as Achilles does.
Oh, definitely.
Like Patroclus is very much like trying to not fight against this prophecy of Achilles dying young if he seeks fame, but at the same time I feel like Achilles, he's just like, whatever, like if I'm famous then great, and I can die young.
Right,
what do I care?
He doesn't have that same like want to
Yeah.
do what he was born to do because he's just Patroclus, which
Right.
sounds mean, but it's true.
But he's not like Achilles.
He's
like
not- yeah.
And other people also know that. Like they recognize
Yeah,
that.
and I
like,
think
he's-
also Patroclus knows that he just the whole time he doesn't like the gods.
yeah.
Like Achilles is like, well, this is my mom, this is the world that they're in, and it's like you said, accepting of it. Whereas Patroclus is like, no, these people are like evil. Like I hate
Right.
them. I'm gonna try my best.
Well, yeah,
to
he
do,
hates
but-
Achilles' mom.
Yeah,
But
so,
Thetis.
Thetis.
Yeah,
Is that how you
she
say it?
sucks, but she's whatever. But I just like how she just like hates Patroclus.
She hates, like,
for
almost
like no
everybody.
reason. Well, she does. Yeah, that's
Like
very true.
everybody.
I mean, I guess
Coming
I
out the
would.
cut.
I guess I would too if like my son was on land and I only saw him once in a while, and he had this weird friend, and his dad
She's like, oh, no,
is sending him to war. I guess I would also hate everyone. But she was a cool character though. I liked her. I hated her, but I liked her.
Yeah, like from the very get go, I told Gabby, like I read like the first 2 chapters, I'm like, ah, Thetis.
Yeah,
I'm like,
she was,
I
she was funny, but
and yeah, I'm gonna say something, but I think it would touch on the answer of another question.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
we can go to another question.
The second question we're going to talk about is Patroclus is often a self-critical narrator. Consider how other characters in the novel regard him. Do they see him in the same way he sees himself?
I love Patroclus. I love Patroclus.
I would say out of the
so much.
two, yeah, which is okay because the main character.
I love
narrates
both
supposed to
of
be-
them, but I just
Achilles got just a little bit annoying towards the end, just because.
he literally was the cause of Patroclus's death.
But that's okay. Like the decisions, and there's no question that talks about what's your say her name, Breesis.
I think it's Briseis.
Briseis.
Yeah.
But like, I love her character too. Oh my god.
Yeah, I felt bad for her.
I did.
Yeah.
And but yes, Patroclus and how he sees himself is really crappily.
Yeah.
And just the acknowledgement that he's not athletic from a little boy, not a good fighter as an adult. I think he does find one thing that he's good at, which is, I call him medicine man.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I did enjoy that little portion of the book.
Yeah, where you got to see him actually be good at something.
Yes, and like help people and have that friendship with Breesis, I guess is how you're saying it.
Briseis. I don't know. I'm guessing on all these names. I don't know.
Patroclus. Remember that?
Oh yeah, there was a TikTok
Patroclus?
where this guy
That's
was like,
so
this British
ugly.
guy was like Patroclus, and I was like, I'm not pronouncing it that way. It's Patroclus.
Patroclus.
Like, I don't know who Patroclus is.
But I think at the very beginning of the book and in his childhood, I think most people would think of Patroclus the way he thought of himself, which is
Yeah.
like incapable.
Well, at least he has daddy issues
Has
too.
no, well, okay, which is not surprising, but yes, because he got exiled for killing
That random kid.
that random kid,
Yeah.
which is like really bloody for a little kid to go
Yeah.
through. But
Well, it was like, yeah.
when he then describes it to Achilles, like how it happened in like his brains, I was
love
like,
the scene.
wow.
Okay, I actually have a quote, but go ahead, keep going.
No, say your quote.
No,
Is
because
fitting?
it hasn't. Not really, but I'll
Oh, okay,
try to
okay.
sprinkle it in and connect it later.
LOL. But yes, I think most people see Patroclus the way he sees himself, and then as the book goes on, he has deeper relationships with people. And I really like Chiron as a character.
Yeah.
And the conversations they have in his like teenage, young adulthood, and Chiron's like says certain quotes to him, and I think it's something that impacts Patroclus the rest of his life, and they remember that time that they have there. And they learn a lot of survival, which that also was a big fan. I was a big fan of them being with Chiron and then Patroclus as the
Because it
medicine
was
man.
such a like
peaceful.
peaceful
and I
and
did
like
tell that to you.
golden time of just being like boys and growing
I was like
up
the first third of the
learning.
book is just like them two, and I was like, where are the other characters? And then they came, and then
Yeah.
they came. I had to be patient, but and I think when he has that relationship with Briseis, there I got the name right.
I don't know if it's
she
right.
obviously
but
sees like just Patroclus as such a sweet, like innocent
Mm-hmm.
person, and with a good, kind heart. I just love Briseis so much.
yeah, she was cool.
And I think they see other pieces of his personality where like you do give something to the world, whether
Yeah.
it's caring for people, genuinely. That I think eventually by the end of the book, there's quite a few key characters who see Patroclus for like what he truly is and what he gives to the world. So
Yeah, which is interesting
I think
too,
it
because
changes
it's.
throughout the book.
I think it does too. It's not like we really explicitly know why these characters, I mean, not every character likes Patroclus. No. Some don't regard him. Some are like whatever about him. Some hate him, like Thetis. But like, we don't explicitly know why Achilles is in love with Patroclus because it's from Patroclus's perspective. So we're not gonna get Achilles' inner monologue like, I loved him because he was really, really kind and he was a really good person to talk to, and like we don't get that because it's not from Achilles' perspective. So we can only go off of what Patroclus is telling us what was said to him from these characters. And then you can insinuate, oh, well, because he said X, Y, and Z, then they obviously love Patroclus. But like, I have some quotes because I can't help it.
No, there was one that I think Odysseus said, and I was like, yes, this is exactly. Which when we go about actually the free will, I'm like, you can't make, and did I write it down? You can't make a spear.
Oh yes,
not be, is
like you can use no, but I remember reading that you can't use you can use a spear as a walking stick, but it doesn't make the difference. It's still a spear. It's going to be used for killing people. Yeah,
right. And I was like, that is exactly what Achilles is in the story. Yeah, like his spear. He tried to have like a normal life. And
he can be a lover with Patroclus, but at the end of the day, he's still a killer.
Yeah, and he's gonna die.
Yeah, yes, but I do remember that quote. Yeah, and it was like, something
Odysseus,
like that.
I was like, yes, Odysseus. Tell them the deep thing, the theme of the story.
I love Odysseus.
Of how just God suck. But
he's like Odysseus is. I really enjoyed reading the Odyssey for certain parts. Some parts are boring, but like. In Greek mythology, he's always called like wily Odysseus because he's clever and cunning and he tricks people. And he's actually like out of Greek mythology, this is a tangent, but like one of like the only good, decent men because most other mortals and gods and whoever are like horrible people. But he's actually like, he actually like, loves his wife Penelope and he just wants to go home.
I love Odysseus. Really sweet at the end that he wanted to go home to his wife.
Yeah, he was just like, this sucks, I want to go home. And then he was
like, and he was like, I don't know if she's alive or not.
Yeah, because he's been away from Ithaca, his home, for like ever. And then after the Iliad ends, the Odyssey begins, and he is delayed another 10 years or whatever. But been getting home. But anyway, that's a tangent. But what I was going to say is, yes, that quote, I really enjoyed that quote a lot because it really kind of like broke down the free will aspect as well as like Achilles' personality in terms of like, he can have personality, he can be a lover, he can be someone who you really enjoy being around, but at the end of the day, he's going to kill people.
I think that would be the answer to question number 6. As a quote from a character.
Yes.
Like exactly that. There you go.
But going back to like how people perceive Patroclus, blah, blah, blah. Oh, on page one, well, at least in my copy, page 103 and 104, after Patroclus and Achilles first like have sex or whatever, they're talking and he says like, Patroclus says to Achilles, like, you don't think Chiron, like, do you think he'll be angry? Like, cause they were staying with Chiron, and then later asks like, well, what about your father? What will he think if he finds out? And Achilles responds, I don't know. Does it matter? I wouldn't stop. So I think it's like, once again, it's not explicitly like, Patroclus, I love you. But at the same time, it's like, well, he obviously highly regards Patroclus. He's willing to defy his father possibly for his love of Patroclus. So obviously he sees value in him, even though Patroclus doesn't see value in himself as much.
True. Yeah. So that was, I guess, the first character.
Yeah, and then like for Briseis, on page 340, after Patroclus is dead, and he's kind of, his soul is kind of like
that was like, I'm sorry, a little bit creepy, but it's okay.
Well, because in Greek mythology, they believe that if you're not buried, then your soul just kind of wanders. Yeah. And so you don't go to the underworld, you're just kind of like floating, which is why the last few pages, Patroclus is like seeing everything, and he's also like, please bury me. Like,
he's like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. So, but Briseis, she's fighting with Achilles, and she said he was worth 10 of you. And so I was just like, I was like, I'm so torn apart right now because Briseis. That was the other thing that was interesting, and that I mean, this whole book is obviously in the Iliad, like, it's not explicit that Achilles and Patroclus are lovers. It's not explicit that they weren't, but there was speculation that like they could have been. And so Madeline Miller obviously just takes that and runs with it, which is really cool. But I thought it was also interesting that she wrote in that Briseis was also in love with Patroclus, and Patroclus obviously like rejects her. But I still think it's so sweet. Like, they have and they have a good friendship still after that. But anyways, to go back to the point where like, so obviously she highly regarded him even after he rejected her and then was killed, that she tells Achilles, who was like not a god, but as close to a god as you can be is still be mortal. Like, he was worth 10 of you. Like, you are not even, like, you're not even on par with Patroclus. Like, you're so beneath him. And Achilles was like, kind of like, yeah, I know. Because he felt so guilty, you know.
Yeah.
And she tells him, like, I hope that Hector kills you. And he's like, yeah, I hope so too. Like,
he's like, except they're both kind of like, after that happens, that moment that they come together is just,
yeah,
it hurts.
Yeah, and they like just talk about Patroclus, and the way they talk about him, obviously they both highly regarded him, and like, you know, I don't know, just the way, which is once again interesting because we only get Patroclus's perspective through the whole book. So once again, we're not going to get,
you don't see what they're thinking, but you see what they're saying.
Yeah,
really putting it all
and even though they're not, even though Briseis and Achilles aren't like, Patroclus was this, and this, and that's why I really liked him. Right. But the things that they're saying insinuate how highly regarded he was in their eyes, or like how much they valued him as just a friend or a person. And the fact that also Patroclus was the one to really save Briseis. Like, he was the one to push Achilles to be like, get the girl off the thing before she's taken by somebody else.
So
like,
angry, which from the very beginning,
yeah,
he saved her. And then it was such a long time where you can see them develop a friendship and things that happen, like when they kiss and he's like, yeah, no, I'm so sorry. But again, like
he's like, I'm still gay.
But she still maintains that friendship with him. And I think there's moments where he thinks about what it could have been with Briseis, like having a kid. And if he wants that.
Well, because he asked, don't Achilles and him have a conversation like about that? And it's funny because he
Achilles
says,
has a kid and he's an evil monster.
Oh yeah, he was horrible. But he did say it was that. I thought that was a really funny conversation. That I don't remember the specifics, but he says, like, after telling Briseis, like, I'm sorry, I don't think of you that way. He asks Achilles, like, have you ever thought of having a family? And Achilles is kind of like, I have a kid. Like,
so,
but
like, not that I wanted, but I have a kid
somewhere. But that was really funny to me. You kind of forget about that part of the story.
You can until she brings it back, like, in full force.
Yeah, and then like even me as the reader, I was like, oh yeah, he does have a kid. But and then Pyrrhus ends up showing up, but like he sucks. But yeah, so
I just think it was so sweet and such a unique take on the story to be like somebody who just like loves you as a friend, and she's like, I would even be willing to have a kid with you, which I'm like, Briseis.
Because it's not like she has anything else too. Like, she was taken from Troy and she had a sucky life there, and
but I just think it was so sweet in the way her life ended. I really want to like be sad about it.
She should have known that.
I know she should have. Yeah, but you know what? She, at the end, and I actually commend her for being so brave, because her whole character was portrayed as super quiet and like not wanting to put herself out there. And at the end, she like roasted Achilles.
She was like, I'm going to kill this 12-year-old.
And she tried. And you know what? Yeah. I think she's my favorite character in the whole book.
she's pretty cool. I really enjoyed her character at the end. I didn't expect her to try to kill a 12-year-old.
It's like good for her. It's not like too out of the blue where you're like, oh, I don't think that could be Briseis.
No,
but I'm like, yes. You know what?
Because I feel like after Patroclus's death, she's just like, whatever.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah,
who had anything to do with him. But
well, that was actually that was kind of one of the quotes that I loved. Like that, I just like, because when I was flipping through the book last night, pulling quotes and stuff. Because I finished this book like I don't know when, like a month or two ago. So I was trying to like remind myself, like, oh yeah, I really love this quote. I really love. And so I was just kind of flipping through, and it was on page, I think I wrote it down. Page 50.
She has notes, everybody.
I'm sorry. This is the literature major coming out of me. Class is in session, folks. But.
Which is amazing.
Well, because like you can have an argument, but if you don't have quotes to back you up, your paper is
lose,
crap.
Basically.
So. It's just, but on page 50, I just kind of like read this, and then I kept flipping through, and I was like, oh, I remember that moment, blah, blah. And then I was like, wait. And then it just like hit me right now. Okay, so not right now, but like when I was reading through the book. And after he tells Achilles about how he killed the kid, it was an accident, but he pushed him or whatever, and his head hit a rock or whatever. I don't really know what happened. But, and he was exiled or whatever. And so Achilles and him are talking about it, and he was like, Achilles is like, you could have lied, and Patroclus is like, yeah, I guess I could have.
And he's like, oh man, I should have done that.
And Patroclus says, you would not have lied, and Achilles was like, no. And Patroclus asked, what would you have done? And it says, quote, Achilles tapped a finger against the branch he sat on. I don't know, I can't imagine it, the way the boy spoke to you. He shrugged. No one has ever tried to take something from me. And he says, never. And Patroclus says he couldn't believe it. A life without such things seemed impossible. And Achilles says, never. I don't know. I think I would be angry if someone had tried to take something from him. And I was like, wait. I was like, this is the end of the book. Patroclus is taken from him and Achilles is angry. Like, but that's the first time he's ever had
foreshadowing.
It is some foreshadowing right there.
But anything taken away from him.
Yeah, but the fact that Patroclus was like shook, he was like, you've never had anything taken away from you. And he's like, no, but I think I would probably be angry. I don't know. But I don't know that emotion of having something taken from me. No one's ever tried to do that. And the fact that Patroclus is taken from him, and then we see the aftermath of what happens when something is taken from Achilles, and it's pretty much just like mass chaos and destruction.
The book ends shortly thereafter.
And Achilles several times after Patroclus's death tries to die, or is tried to be killed in battle, and it just never works out until it finally does. But isn't he killed by Paris?
No. Yeah.
And so, which is funny too. Not funny, but like you never see Paris in the entire book, because Paris is the one that took Helen. And it also in Greek mythology, there's so many Greek myths are so funny, because like sometimes you'll have a mortal or a person or even a god that has like these kids and these are their names. Then you'll read another Greek myth and the kids' names change and they have only two kids. Like, so Achilles' death is, there's so many different ways that he dies. Yeah. But in this book, he's killed by Paris, and it has nothing to do with his heel. I don't think the Achilles heel narrative came into play until like the Middle Ages or something. But anyway, I just really liked that quote. It just shows that like Achilles, once again, his personality coming out.
You know what, though? I think that comes a little bit earlier into play, actually, because one of the questions, we're not going to answer this, but I'm going to try to bring it in a little bit, is Achilles and Agamemnon. Yeah. And the feud they have, and like, would they have to end up that way because they're both super prideful of their position, and that like strife they have throughout literally the second half of the book. But I'm like,
so stupid.
It is so stupid. That's why I was getting annoyed with Achilles, not gonna lie. But
yeah, Achilles sucks, and that's when like he really caused the death of Patroclus. He made not made Patroclus, but Patroclus felt like he needed to be the one to fight because all their men were dying.
Yeah, and he felt guilty. But Agamemnon trying to take Briseis back.
That's true.
And then he was like, well, that's mine. I won it in battle. Yeah. That's a huge disrespect to me. And that's when we first see, and Patroclus first sees Achilles truly angry in that manner of like, this is mine. How can it be taken from me? My honor and respect. And I think obviously from there, it goes downhill. But I think that's right when you think about how Achilles grew up having everything, even though he didn't grow up with his mom in the
but he grew up like a prince. And
he's not used to that. And like I said, he never was a warrior either. So it's kind of interesting, that dynamic they have between Agamemnon, Odysseus, and I forget the one with the Diomedes. Diomedes.
He sucked.
A third character, but that Achilles is kind of fighting the feeling that he has that he's like above everybody else, but being treated almost like an equal amongst all these warriors. He's like, you are part of my army. That's it. You are my weapon.
Well, that's what's so wild is that like
I don't bow down to you. Like
right. That's also what's wild is that he's like given a whole freaking army at the age of like 16, and then obviously they're in Troy or out on the outskirts of Troy for like 10 years.
Forever.
So he actually is like 26, which in my mind I'm 25, and I still couldn't imagine a 26-year-old leading an army, let alone a 16-year-old. But I know like back then, old timey times, it was different.
People grew up a lot faster.
Grew up really, really fast. But yeah, so I don't remember how that even came about with the original question that we were supposed to be answering. But I just really, really love that quote.
Patroclus as a self.
Oh, right.
Which has nothing to do with this.
No, I don't know how we got there.
Let me go to 11, which is one of Gabby's questions. But I still want you to answer it first, because you said you really liked Odysseus. As represented in the novel, what are some of Odysseus' defining qualities? Do you find him a sympathetic character? Why or why not?
Yeah, I kind of already touched on this a little bit. I didn't mean to, but wily Odysseus. I really love Odysseus. In this book, I love him in the Iliad. I love him in the Odyssey. I just think I do think he's a sympathetic character in the sense, because at least for me personally, because I just think it's refreshing to have like a male figure in Greek mythology who's like, you know what? I really miss my wife.
Yeah.
That's not so toxic. Rare. Yeah. And he just wants to go home to Penelope. There are some moments in both the Iliad and the Odyssey where Odysseus makes really questionable decisions, but like for the most part,
anybody does.
Right. Yeah. And like for the most part, at least in this world, Odysseus is like a very decent human being. And I think that's nice. And even we see him like at the beginning of the book when Patroclus is taken to, anyway, the place where he's supposed to be a suitor for Helen.
Oh, yeah.
And Odysseus is there, and one of the men makes a comment to Odysseus about like, you can't have Helen. And he's like, don't want her. I am looking at Penelope. And so And so he
I
just
forgot about that.
Yeah, and I was
so
like,
cute.
oh, Odysseus. And so he just really, like, this whole time, he just wants to go home. Like, through the whole Trojan War, he's just like, I just want to go home to my wife and my kid and my home, Ithaca.
And that's it.
And that's pretty much it. And, like, I think it makes him sympathetic because we don't see any of the other men really worried about that. In fact, we see the other men having affairs or sleeping with, raping, really, different women and girls that have come from Troy. And, so I just think it's one of those things that also he's very cunning and clever, but he's still kind. Yeah. And, like, when he first meets Patroclus, I think is when
he's going to ask him to be part of his... Well, no, because
he saw him before. Well, he saw him before at when Patroclus was, like, 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
And then he saw him again when I think Achilles went missing, quote unquote, when his mother sent him to
whatever that island was.
Yeah.
That was so messy.
I don't remember the island, but the girl's name was Diademia. And whatever. But and
Who
so
has
I think
his kid, by the way. But.
Yeah. And disguises him as a girl and whatever. But I think Odysseus is there that day when Patroclus is like, what is happening? Where's Achilles? But the way he talks to Patroclus and other people, I think, is just, it's almost like he's you don't want to trust him because he is, like, kind of holding his cards close to his chest a little bit. But at the same time, because he's kind and he's forthright with certain things, and you just know he's a man that, like, knows more than he's letting on, but not in a malicious way. He's just one of those characters, I think, that is just, like, I don't know, he's just smart in everything he does. And so... And he's not cruel, like needlessly cruel. Like, he'll fight in battle, but he's not going to just, like, go slaughter people for no reason. And he really, I think he picks up on Achilles and Patroclus's relationship because he allows them to
and
share
it's so
a tent or something. He made some comment or something.
And once actually at the end, when Patroclus has died, Odysseus is like, I tried to bury you, Patroclus. Like, at least you know. And Patroclus was like, yes, I know. Thank you. But I think you're right. I think it's a refreshing character. I think he's a super, if I had one word to describe him, it's like warm. Like, not distant, not cold, not cruel, but...
He doesn't think he's above anybody else.
Right.
And Ithaca is, like, his home, and it's not, like, one of those, like, kingdoms that's, like, the best of the best. And they kind of touch on this too, the way that other characters make comments about Ithaca, and he just is like, whatever, because it's not one of, like, the best kingdoms, but he's still a king. And, like, but I just think he just, I don't know, the whole time it just really cracks me up that he's just like, I just want to go home.
Like, literally anytime you hear him say, like, a word, the next one will be like, I want to go for my wife. And I think when I first started to be like, you know what, this guy is not problematic, is when he went to go visit Patroclus when they were in that island that Achilles is with Diadem. I can't pronounce these names, but the chick who becomes...
I think it's Diademia. I don't know. Once again, I'm guessing on all these pronunciations.
But he visits and he's like, oh, do you want to join my war? I'm going to go fight. And he's like so unproblematic about it. He's like, I don't really care. I think I know you, but whatever, bye. He leaves in, 5 minutes. And he's just like, I was like, you know what? That could have gone, like, way worse. But Odysseus is just, like, such a chill character. And he's not going to, like, tower over you in any conversation. So I was like, I'm a big fan of this character.
I also love the interaction he has with Pyrrhus when he goes to ask if Patroclus could be buried. Gosh, and he makes a comment that's really funny to me. He also is, like, very funny in, like, a very dry way. But he says to Pyrrhus, like, have you thought about burying Patroclus? And he's like, why should I bury him? He's nothing. And he was like, well, your dad didn't think so. And then, but at the earlier part of that conversation, he makes some comment like, I hope I'm not disturbing you. And Pyrrhus is like, no, I don't sleep very much. Also, there's a 12-year-old. So that's what's, like, killing me right now. But,
yes. Let that be noted.
Yeah. And he's like, well, I don't sleep very much, blah, blah, blah. And Odysseus is like, no wonder you get more stuff done than the rest of us. And Pyrrhus, like, can't tell if he's, like, mocking him or being serious.
Dude,
and Odysseus is just, like, poker face, like, oh, that's really nice. You get so much more done than the rest of us because you don't sleep. That's really great. And it just, like, cracked me up. And Pyrrhus in his, like, 12-year-old brain is like, are you mocking me or are you...
He can't.
Okay.
Even though he acts... Anyway, because we're going to touch on that, like, really, really soon. But, yes, Odysseus, we're a big fan of his character.
I love Odysseus.
A sweet man. Man. That's what I would say.
Good kid. He's a good kid.
Good kid. And it's really sad to think that after this book ends, he has, like, another 10 years before he can even
he just, like, the Odyssey is just, like, him being like, I just want to go home. It's, like, so great.
Like I said, he does other things. But at the end of the day, if you know one thing about Odysseus, he just wants to go home. And that's so nice. But the last one, which is, again, we're touching on Achilles' son now. But
Oh yeah. Ugh, I hate his
16.
son.
Yeah, dude,
Son
bad character.
sucks.
Peleus warns his son that any mortal who visits the sea nymphs in their caves beneath the sea does not return the same. How was his belief borne out by the character of, you said Pierce?
That's what I said, but I
Pyrrhus.
don't know if it's right.
Who was
Pyrrhus.
raised there? In what way does Pyrrhus confirm or deny Patroclus' fears about the gods? Well, it completely confirms it. I'll tell you right off the bat. Because imagine this 12-year-old boy, and when he comes in the scene, I'm like, he really is acting like he's grown up.
Mm-hmm.
He is the alpha chief. He comes up to the table and he's like, "Oh, where's my seat?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you what to do."
Well, because
and
he's
how we're gonna
Achilles'
do it."
son, so he's like, and I want to be like,
I'm like,
your dad
Achilles
didn't
is
even
not-
act
he
like
sucks.
that.
He
So,
sucks.
like, how are you going to act like that when your dad didn't even act
But
like
then
that?
that's how you know, because unlike Achilles, who was kind of raised with his dad and training with all the other boys like a normal human being, even though he was above the rest, Pyrrhus, Thetis like threw him down to be raised
Dude.
with the gods, and obviously he comes out the cut at 12 years old thinking he's all that, and he has a very different upbringing, and the people who've spoken into him is like that much more. I mean, if you imagine Achilles already kind of knowing he's better than everybody else and not having anything taken away from him, and how that created problems for him towards the end of the book because he doesn't like his stuff taken from him. Imagine Pyrrhus, who's
Yeah.
like that to like the umpteenth
Yeah.
percent. Like it.
It's just like, I don't know if this is even how he's described in the, not this book, but
I
in
don't know.
Iliad and blah, blah,
I haven't read.
is just like, for me, I'm like, this is a really good example of hubris, which obviously the gods did not like. So like, not just arrogance, but arrogant to the point of thinking that you're on the same level as the gods or above the gods or that. And like sometimes with hubris, it was not even like that deep, but the gods made it that deep. Like there are several times throughout Greek mythology that like a certain mortal woman was really pretty, and it's not her fault, she's really, really beautiful, but like someone will make a comment to this beautiful woman like, you're
Right.
more beautiful than Aphrodite, and Aphrodite is like, I'm gonna kill that lady, like, because it's perceived as hubris. Like
Right.
you can't say, anytime someone's like, oh, you're like this god or goddess, or you're just like, so I think for Pyrrhus, whatever his name is, doesn't matter, I don't like him, that like his attitude is very much like hubris. And so that like he comes in, like I said, like Achilles didn't even act like that, so it makes you think as like a 12-year-old, like Achilles didn't even act like that as like a 26-year-old man, so why are you like pressed as 12-year-old?
really-
But it's just like the gods, like being raised by Thetis and being raised around like other sea nymphs who I think, you know, you're not surrounded by like mortals who are just normal people and
Right.
that are telling you like no or whatever. Like it's kind of like the same as like when you have
spoiled
kids
child.
today that's just spoiled.
A
Yeah.
spoiled child,
and so
literally.
I think Patroclus, if he was, I mean, he saw this happening because like he
Right.
wasn't buried yet or whatever, but like if he was alive, would have been like, see, Achilles, this is what happens when
I'm
you like your
screaming.
son sucks, dude. Like
Legit sucks so
yeah.
bad.
But in the way he talks to like Odysseus or
Anybody.
Agamemnon or like anybody, or Briseis when she comes in and he's so like crude and really rude to her and she tries to kill him, and I'm like, sis, you need to like do better
She
than that.
tried to swim away.
She tried. I'm like, that's a bad plan too. But
And Patroclus really thought she would have made it.
yeah, Patroclus was like, she's a good swimmer. Oh no, there she
No,
goes.
there she goes. Boom.
But yeah, so I don't know. I
People
think
might
he's
sink
just
her.
a horrible character, and I don't know if it's set. I don't know. I don't remember. I have to look at his.
Which I think it just gives you a little window into what Achilles could be like if he was raised differently. And how
Yeah.
important how people are raised is. Okay? Because you probably have the same type of person, whatever. And they're just raised by some different
Yeah.
people, and they come out really, really bad. Like super bad.
Well, also he was also to like the prophecy of like, because I was trying to look to see if it said how Pierce eventually dies. I don't remember, but it said like he was told like if you. Like the Trojan War will only end if Pyrrhus is involved in the war. So I think that also once again is a prophecy that really went to his head. Like he was like, all right, folks, I'm going to come up in here and end the Trojan War,
Yeah.
which the prophecy came true. But then in the way it ended, and then Pyrrhus being like a real jerk to all of the people of Troy and like taking slaves and raping women and blah, 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 and like killing civilians for no reason. So
crappy
yeah.
person.
He's a really crappy person.
And it really reminded me of Agamemnon, because like it was just so chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when Agamemnon killed his own daughter, and it literally came out the cut. I was like not expecting that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, everyone was like,
Okay,
Well,
because they got stuck on that island. There was no wind, and he was like,
well, that's what the gods. See, that's why the gods are such dicks, dude. Because the gods were like, well, we'll put some wind on you if you kill
offer
your
a
daughter.
sacrifice,
Yeah.
which is really horrible.
Yeah.
And then you can see that at the very end, Paris kills, I forget who the first person was, because he's like on a rampage, and then he kills some, I think it's a princess, Polly.
Yeah,
like
that
something.
chick. Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a sacrifice you to my dad.
Yeah, and
I'm
Patroclus can like
dude,
taste the blood.
It's so disgusting
because his ashes are.
That's so horrible.
Wow.
But it's nasty. But yes, he is like an evil character.
Yeah, he is.
And it's all like
He's also in the Aeneid, which isn't Greek; it's Roman. But Virgil pretty much just copied the Iliad, because I forget who was
not original dude
in charge of Rome at the time. It wasn't Caesar, maybe it was Augustus, but maybe it was, I don't know who it was, but they pretty much, the Aeneid was just propaganda, and they pretty much just commissioned Virgil to write it. That would show why the emperor at that time was like actually a god. And so Virgil was like, okay, because like you just do what the emperor says unless you want to die. And so he wrote the Aeneid about Aeneas, who was also in the Trojan War, but he pretty much but he does mention Pyrrhus and like how horrible he was as a person, and he took slaves and blah blah blah. But yeah, it's just interesting to me that no matter what like medium of literature, whether it's Greek or Roman, that he's a horrible person. Poorly. I don't think there's
so
any
basically
myth
the closer
like,
you are to the crappy gods, the crappier you are.
Probably, yeah. I would assume that's probably the case. But yeah, so he was the worst character. He had like no redeeming qualities at all.
That's it.
That's
it. And that only took like, again, 2 chapters to discern.
Yeah, he was only in like the last like 30 pages.
And we're like, yeah, we hate him for sure.
And I was like, oh, I hate that Achilles' offspring is like horrible, but
dude, I swear, Patroclus and Briseis should have like gotten together, made a good kid.
Oh.
So
no,
cute.
but Patroclus and Achilles. I love Patroclus and Achilles. Like the whole time I was reading this, I was like, like I'm so excited for this whole book. But
for my first piece of Greek literature, I did once you get into it, because the first few chapters were like so visual, and I was also lost in the sauce because I don't know any background. Like you had read a little bit of it, so I think you could be like, oh yeah, I know this character, but I'm like learning for the very first time like who these people are in this world, and I was just trying to keep track of everything, and I was like writing notes on my phone just so I can like refer back to them and be like, oh, this character is this. But
yeah, I really had to reach back
like,
to like
writing wise, she was super visual. I like how she described things.
Really like
the smells,
juicy writing.
Dude. Writing.
That's what I love. I love it.
It wasn't like a ton of adjectives. It's like juicy writing.
It's good writing.
Like completely visual. The things she doesn't mention, your brain can just fill up immediately, and just unique in how she describes either places, smells, people. Yeah, it's the first type of book that had that type of like feel to it. So
anytime I pick up a book and like the first chapter is like that, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a good read. It's like eating. It's like food. You're like, yes, like this is so good. But yeah, I love fiction like that. Sometimes certain fiction can get really, really dry. But
yeah,
when you have a book that's like, it's just
like super colorful,
so good.
It's just super alive, like vibrant.
It's very beautifully written. It's almost like poetry, but it's still prose. Like it's the same. It's the same type of feeling. Like it feels like you're reading poetry, but it's a story. So it was really, really, really good. I have one more quote that really like, when I read it, I was like, it's really, really good. So. And I know it's like on Bookstagram. I'm trying to break into the Bookstagram.
She said she had a TikTok account, and I think she's lying.
I didn't say I had a TikTok account. I said I think it's interesting. You think I don't have a TikTok account.
Yeah, you don't have a TikTok account. For Book Talk, that's what it's called, but you have Bookstagram.
You don't know.
Same thing, Book Talk.
You don't know what. I'm trying to break into the Bookstagram game, guys. Not really. I mean, I just follow a lot of Bookstagrammers, but
you do.
I need to like. I just don't like. Okay, what would I put like? Whatever. I don't have that many aesthetically pleasing bookshelves in my home, but I know this is the quote that's like, anytime someone's talking about this book, they like put it in their caption or whatever. But it is a really great quote, so I'm just gonna be basic and like,
I like Odysseus.
Read it. Okay, well, this isn't a quote. No, this isn't a quote by Odysseus. No. This is Patroclus talking. But like when he goes to wherever this island, Skira, I don't know where it was, with Diademia there, and then Patroclus. Achilles is dressed like a girl, and Patroclus is like, that's Achilles. Anyway, so he says, and at least on my copy, it's page 134. I could recognize him by touch alone, by smell. I would know him blind by the way his breaths came and his feet struck the earth. I would know him in death at the end of the world. And I was like, oh, it's so good. Like, so beautiful.
Dude,
like,
and Diadema, but that's her name?
Diademia.
With Diademia, dude, she was not having it. That was really cracking me up because it was so messy. She's like, everybody had to go away from the party, and she was like bawling. Yeah. And she's like, you lied to me. But yeah, before that happened,
she was messy.
Yes. Patroclus was like, oh, that's Achilles.
Yeah. I just thought that was
like,
so...
It was like a whole... I forget how much time passed. And I was
it
like,
had been a while.
It had been a while.
I mean, it hadn't been like a year.
And Achilles got married.
Yeah. And but I just thought that was really, I was like, oh, that's so good. Like, that quote is like so fantastic. Madeline Miller really did that.
Like you said, very visual, very visual.
But yeah, it was a great book. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but because like I like Greek mythology, but it can be dry.
There's another series, and they're gonna remake movies. That
Percy Jackson.
I
love the Percy Jackson books. You guys, they're so good. I remember reading those when I was in like middle school and maybe early high school. I think there's only 4.
I don't remember.
And I was like obsessed. The movies were not good.
Lame.
They were lame.
So they have to remake them.
But I think Disney Plus is going to remake them. But they don't. I don't think they said
do
when.
better than you did with.
But
Cinderella. That was Amazon. Sorry.
Yeah.
Say nothing,
but let's not bring that into the secret space right now. But yeah, so I'm looking for another. I guess I could reread Percy Jackson, but maybe
I should just read it for the first time.
Oh my god, Percy Jackson is
Harry
so
Potter.
Good. Harry Potter. Stop.
Exactly.
Harry Potter made me cry. Okay, Percy Jackson didn't make me cry, but Harry
really?
Potter. I have to look at my Harry Potter books. I'm trying to think of which ones made me cry. I'm still missing 2 books.
Oh, yeah, I thought you had those set.
No, I'm missing 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm missing number 5 and number 7.
8 books?
No, it's 8 movies, 7 books.
Yeah.
But I cried during the 6th one and of course the 7th one. But
I saw a scene on TikTok and I was very confused. I showed Gabby and I was like, what's going on here?
That was in the 7th book or 8th movie, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, and now I really want to read like another. Madeline Miller does have another book called Circe, and that's about the time that I think that Odysseus spent with Circe in the Odyssey when he was trying to go home, but he got trapped on her island and blah blah. And Circe's cool because she's a witch. So I mean, like that's so
Harry Potter.
That's so awesome. Yeah. So yeah. So I think or no, was that Circe? Yeah, she was a witch. You'll have to read the book, find out. So Circe by Madeline Miller.
Different direction.
That one's a great one.
But yeah, maybe I'll read some Percy Jackson.
You should.
It's like oldies but goodies.
Percy Jackson is so good.
Now knowing, I'm like, I would read the books rather than the movies and then wait for the remakes and see what they do with that.
Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
There was a lot of people like when I was in school who were like, Percy Jackson.
It's really good. It's a good series and it's short. It's only 4 books, I think.
That's not too bad. See, I'm a bigger fan of series.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Sometimes they do really terribly and they go on forever, but that happens with movies too. But like I said, the same way I prefer TV series over movies, I think I prefer book series over a single book. But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy a single book or a single movie. It's just overall the type of story.
But this one
where you get really
did leave me wanting more. Of course, once they're both dead, there's
so
not much.
That
was the other thing. When they're reunited
at the end.
Which
Thetis is like, you know what? I give up. Which really cracked me up.
Because she knows that like they really do love each other.
So
but
she was like whatever.
The really like the last little paragraph, not even paragraph, the last 2 sentences. In the darkness, 2 shadows reaching through the hopeless, heavy dusk. Their hands meet and light spills in a flood like 100 golden urns pouring out of the sun. The end. They're reunited and it feels so good.
In the underworld, which I'm like,
it was so satisfying.
Hell?
Well, they don't have a heaven.
I know.
So everybody goes to
this, which is good. So yeah, I guess
based off there. I mean, it's not a horrible place. It's just it's Hades' place. So people always think that I think probably from Hercules. But people always think that Hades is the villain, and he's not. He's just another god, and he just happens to be in charge of the underworld. When Hades, Zeus, and oh gosh, I'm blanking. Poseidon, when they divided up the worlds, Hades just got stuck with the underworld. That's all. He's not a bad guy. He just rules the underworld with his wife.
He got the short
Persephone.
end of the stick.
He did. So,
okay.
but he's not a villain. He's just, he's just chilling. And
No,
now
not a
he
villain,
gets to
villain.
be in the presence of Achilles and Patroclus.
Oh
so
my
really,
gosh.
who
the
wins?
party begins down
Yeah.
there. But yeah, so what a introduction to Greek literature. Although I don't know if this counts.
I mean,
some
it's fiction, so
that everybody be liking right now.
Yeah.
And we did a fiction books. We did a non-fiction book last season. So we'll see. You have to tell us what fiction book you want us to read next.
Guys, follow me on Goodreads.
Oh,
Okay,
yes,
you know what's
I
so
have to-
funny?
good.
A few people have followed me on Goodreads, and I was so confused because I was like, I don't know how these people, but I know I've mentioned my Goodreads account before, and so
dude,
certain
those people-
people, so some of you all have been following me,
Oh,
because like
that's so crazy,
It's
dude.
really weird. I was like the
And
other day.
all you're reading now is a bunch of like horror books.
I was
so that's really good
I'm in the
for
middle
October.
of but follow me, guys. Okay, my reviews are on par. They're pretty good. I'm in the middle of reading Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Shout
Is
out
that
to
the
Amanda.
Harry Potter looking book?
It's not Harry Potter, and it doesn't look like Harry Potter because these people are not witches. It's right under
does
the
it look like?
camera. That's not Harry
Oh,
Potter.
yeah,
It has
Mistborn.
nothing to do with
It
witches
looks
or
a little
wizards.
bit. It looks a little bit like Harry Potter.
It's not. Literally
And she finished
blasphemous.
What was the Stephen King book you finished?
Carrie, by Stephen King. And I'm in the middle. So I'm in the middle of Mistborn. I'm in the middle of Men Like Gods by H.G. Wells, which is more of an old-timey time classic. Not old-timey time. It's 20th century. So follow me on Goodreads to catch up with what I'm reading, Some of you already have.
I don't read nearly as much. They really have.
My
that
profile
cracks me
is
up,
just
dude.
Gabby Sanford. So look me up and follow me.
Simple and see all the because you're trying to watch the TV movie series for the month of October.
Oh,
All
well,
the decorations are already up, people.
yeah, they are. And I'm on movie 4 of Harry. I'm trying to finish all the Harry Potter
Oh, that's
movies by the end of
right.
October. That has nothing to do with my Goodreads account, but
we have
just
an
putting it out
idea.
there.
We have an idea that maybe in the summer. I don't know. I've never seen anything Harry Potter.
Harry Potter,
So
you guys.
we're thinking about
y'all already know.
me watching the movies
So
for the first
good.
time and then discussing them.
Yeah,
after-
I really
for
wish
each
you would read the
episode.
books because the books are like
I know, but that's like so. It would take so much longer than just watching the movie. And then discussing it.
they're so fast reads though. I know that, but I'm just in general, not for the podcast. But yes, Harry Potter. You already know Harry Potter is like so good. It's just one of those things that it's a classic. It's definitely a modern classic. I think J.K. Rowling, she's going to be in 20 years we're going to look back and I mean already we regard her books as classics, but modern classics. But yeah, Harry Potter, all about it.
Just it's fall.
My favorite
Get
character
your reading
is
on.
Snape.
I'm screaming.
I
Dude,
love Severus
on TikTok,
Snape.
I saw. It wasn't Harry Potter, but it was Alan Rickman
Rest in
in a
peace.
gas station, like making out with this girl.
What?
I don't know what movie it was.
He's
from.
dead. Oh, in a movie. I was like, someone just filmed Alan Rickman.
No. But I guess in a movie he did play
okay.
whatever. It wasn't Harry Potter, is what I'm saying.
Oh.
And people were like, I would die for Alan Rickman. And I'm like, all I remember him, all I remember from him is in Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, well, yes.
And that's it. That's all I know from Alan Rickman.
His character, he is Snape. Like and it was so funny because when I was watching the movie, I've seen the movies obviously, but when I was rewatching them after watching book 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban, I was like, who did the casting for this movie? And I remember watching the
Like,
credits,
they-
and I was watching the credits for casting, and I was like, I forget, it was a woman, and I was like, ma'am, I wish I remembered her name so I could shout her out. Not that she listens to this, but you never know, just to put her name out there. But her casting was like, so, like, he is, like, Alan Rickman was Snape. You cannot tell me that he was not. Like, Severus Snape, I love Snape. I just like can't even like, and I want to like tell you so much, but I don't want to spoil it.
Don't spoil it.
I'm not
Next
going
time,
to. I'm
maybe
not.
in the summer. Although I wanted to watch it during the fall, like with you, but it's fine.
Yeah.
That I might, having never watched anything or read anything or know anything,
It's so
like
good.
watch the movie, and for each movie I watch, we talk about an episode.
Yeah.
Over someone who's obsessed with it and someone who hasn't watched it at all.
I'm not obsessed, but it is one of my favorite
it's like
series. But yes, it's like I read those books my senior year of college, the semester that I had 7 classes, but I still made time to read Harry Potter, and I finished all 7
hilarious.
books in like 4 months because I was that like
into it.
Like I was like, I don't care that I have 7 classes right now and I have work to do. I'm
After
going
it
to
papers.
make time to read freaking Harry Potter. Like, so good. Anyway, this was a really long tangent. I'm so sorry, but if anyone mentions Harry Potter to me, I'm like, oh, let me tell you. Anyway,
Book. Okay. Well,
it's not real, Gabby.
it's not real. She'll be crying over
Snape is
fictional
not-
characters.
I do, because it's just
Snape.
like when you get that into a book and you're
Yeah, I
like,
know what you mean.
although I did not cry over the Song of Achilles,
It's not.
but it
it's
was
not-
very good. Yes.
But yes, and then that is this week. We will see you next week. You can follow us on Instagram.
Maybe we'll post a little something
website.
about like the song. We could post like an aesthetically. Oh, okay, Bookstagram. Okay. I have an idea.
My gosh,
we'll talk about it later.
Post on. You know what you should post it on?
No.
Twitter. I bet you might get more stuff on Twitter.
Yeah, but if I post like an aesthetically pleasing, and so I can like, I'm trying to break into Bookstagram, okay?
Oh my!
I want to be a Bookstagrammer.
We'll
this is my destiny.
Books and TV, I think, is what our
this
podcast
is what it's turning into.
That's okay. But yes, in the next week we're going to be back to TV. So I guess we're just flip flopping. It's like, okay.
I'm so sorry. We obviously.
I don't think it qualifies as TV, but very entertaining, and we have quite a few harsh words again. So hopefully what I hope will happen is that we watch a TV show that is good. Right now, all we've been doing is dragging them, and that's okay because we're honest. But we want to watch some new series that have come out because there's been a lot of new stuff. Actually,
there has been. Yeah.
That's really surprising. So catch us next week, and we'll see you then.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.